Folks, a very serious situation is unfolding. There was a terrorist attack in Russia. At least 40 people killed and dozens injured in Moscow concert hall, and ISIS did claim responsibility. What is the retaliation going to be from Putin? Who knows? But the U.S. Embassy did post a warning, a security alert for Americans, saying avoid large gatherings over the next 48 hours. They said the embassy is monitoring reports that extremists have imminent plans to target large gatherings in Moscow, to include concerts. And then it says U.S. citizens should be advised to avoid large gatherings over the next 48 hours. They say avoid large crowds, monitor local media for updates, and be aware of your surroundings. Now, before we go further, before I show the other reports that the U.S. Embassy posted for Americans and then going over the situation, I really want people to not jump to conclusions. Let more information come out before you start believing some tweet or some Facebook post from someone throwing some assumption out there. There's going to be a lot of narrative shifting, a lot of speculation, a lot of misinformation. So just remember that. So let's show the other alerts from the U.S. Embassy. This one's a message for U.S. citizens, updates for eastern border crossings with Finland, U.S. Embassy, Russia, Moscow. So Finnish authorities have announced the closure of its border with Russia after temporary reopening. And then this will be in effect until January 14th. I'm sure none of us are traveling to Russia, so that really doesn't matter. But there are a couple other reports from the U.S. Embassy as well. Now let's jump into the situation that actually unfolded. So several gunmen burst into a large concert hall on the edge of Moscow on Friday and sprayed the crowd with automatic gunfire, killing at least 40 people, injuring more than 100 others, and setting fire to the venue in a brazen attack just days after President Vladimir Putin cemented his grip on power in a highly orchestrated electoral landslide. And I'm sure this is the aftermath of that. I'm sure this is, well, I don't want to say I'm sure, but it's highly likely that this was because of the rigged election, since obviously these elections in Russia are rigged. Even if the majority did want someone else to replace him, it's rigged. So Moscow Mayor Sergei described the attack as a huge tragedy in which state authorities are investigating as terrorism. The attack, which left the concert hall in flames with a collapsed roof, was the deadliest attack in Russia in years, and it came as the country's war in Ukraine dragged into a third year. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement posted on affiliated channels on social media. In a statement posted by its Amaq news agency, the group said it attacked a large gathering of Christians in the city of Krasnoyarsk and the outskirts of the Russian capital of Moscow, killing and wounding hundreds. It was not immediately possible to verify the authenticity of the claim. And if you've seen the footage, it is a little confusing because you see the gunmen, like 3 or 4 of them, just unloading on people. You see a couple people that are dead, clearly, but there was this group in the corner of the video. You guys can search it if you want. I can't obviously show it on here. Unloading on like 5-10 people. It's kind of hard to tell because it's a security angle, but some of the people were still moving afterwards, and the amount of gunfire in that corner, it was interesting to see people still alive. But like I said, it's hard to tell if they were injured, if they were in critical condition, or if, who knows, right? Who knows? That was just an interesting clip, but I'm not jumping to conclusions whatsoever. I'm just stating that a situation did break out and that you should avoid large gatherings and that this is happening. So, a U.S. official tells CBS News the U.S. has intelligence confirming the Islamic State's claims of responsibility and that they have no reason to doubt those claims. The U.S. officials also confirmed that the U.S. provided intelligence to Russia about a potential attack under the intelligence community's duty to warn requirement. National Security Council spokesman Adrian Watson confirmed that in a statement provided to CBS News Friday evening. I also wanted to mention some people are saying or speculating that this was within our own doing, or this really reeks of CIA, etc. Just don't listen to social media right now. We have no idea, especially when events happen in Russia, for instance, let alone within the United States itself. I just really want people to remember: do not jump to conclusions and do not believe everything or anything you read on social media. Earlier this month, the U.S. government had information about a planned terrorist attack in Moscow, potentially targeting large gatherings to include concerts, which prompted the State Department to issue a public advisory to Americans in Russia. Watson said the U.S. government also shared this information with Russian authorities in accordance with its long-standing duty to warn policy. U.S. law enforcement officials tell CBS News that there is no known threat to U.S. emanating from the Moscow attack. But who knows the extent of that, or if that's true, or just trying to not put people in a panic or damage control. Who really knows how close we are to war, or what Putin's true mind is, or his narratives, or what he's thinking about this, or how he's going to respond or react. It also says that the assailants threw explosives, triggering the massive blaze at the hall, which can accommodate 6,000, according to Russian news outlets. Video from outside showed the building on fire, with a huge cloud of smoke rising through the night sky. The city was lit up by the blinking blue lights of dozens of fire trucks, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles. The attack took place as crowds gathered for a performance by the famous Russian rock band Picnic. Russian news reports said concert goers were being evacuated, but that an unknown number could have been trapped by the blaze. Well, that's a whole other situation beyond people just getting shot. The prosecutor's office said several men in combat fatigues entered the concert hall and fired on concert goers. Repeated volleys of gunfire could be heard in videos posted by Russian media and on Telegram channels. One showed two men with rifles moving through the venue. The assailants had set it on fire as gunshots rang out incessantly in the background. Other videos showed up to 4 attackers armed with assault rifles and wearing caps who were shooting at screaming people at point-blank range. Guards at the concert hall didn't have guns. Some could have been killed at the start of the attack, Russian media reported. It wasn't immediately clear what happened to the assailants, but some Russian news outlets suggested they had fled before special forces and riot police arrived. So they're still out there. Russian authorities said security has been tightened at Moscow's airports, railway stations, and the capital's sprawling subway system. Moscow's mayor canceled all mass gatherings, and theaters and museums shut for the weekend. Other Russian regions also tightened security. The Kremlin hasn't blamed anyone for the attack, but some Russian lawmakers were quick to accuse Ukraine of being behind it. Hours before the attack, the Russian military launched a sweeping barrage on Ukraine's power system, crippling the country's biggest hydroelectric plant and other energy facilities and leaving more than 1 million people without electricity. Here's where I'm going with the not jumping to conclusion part, which is very important because, of course, right away you would blame Ukraine, try to win people on your side, or these attackers did that on purpose because of the alibi, or how you could easily push this on someone else, or ISIS taking the spotlight, even if they didn't do it. Who knows, really? It's impossible to know. So John Kirby, a spokesman for the White House National Security Council, said Friday that he couldn't yet speak about all the details, but that the images are just horrible and it's hard to watch. Our thoughts are going out with the victims of this terrible shooting attack, Kirby said, and there are some moms and dads and brothers and sisters and sons and daughters who haven't gotten the news yet, and this is going to be a tough day. So this attack was also followed by a statement issued earlier this month by the U.S. Embassy in Moscow that urged Americans to avoid crowded places in the Russian capital in view of imminent plans by extremists to target large gatherings in Moscow, a warning that was repeatedly by several other Western embassies. So it's like they knew about this. This was a statement issued earlier the month urging Americans to avoid crowded places. So asked about the embassy's notice issued on March 7th, Kirby referred the question to the State Department, adding, and I quote, "I don't think that this was related to this specific attack." Responding to a question about whether Washington had any prior information about the assault, Kirby responded, and I quote, "I'm not aware of any advanced knowledge that we had this of a terrible attack." Russia was shaken by a series of deadly terror attacks in the early 2000s during the fighting with separatists in the Russian province of Chechnya. In October 2002, Chechen militants took about 800 people hostage at a Moscow theater. 2 days later, Russian special forces stormed the building, and 129 hostages and 41 Chechen fighters died, most of them from the effects of narcotic gas Russian forces used to subdue the attackers. Then you also had, in September of 2004, about 30 Chechen militants seized a school in Bezlin in southern Russia, taking hundreds of hostages. The siege ended in a bloodbath. 2 days later, more than 330 people, about half of them children, were killed. So once again, folks, there's not enough information yet to try to say what happened or who's responsible or the extent of the situation or what Putin's going to do in terms of retaliation or who he's going to retaliate on. It's very scary. You're poking a bear that could blow up the world by the push of a button, and it's just something that makes me want to reiterate even more that you got to protect your wealth. When things come crashing down, you don't want to be wishing you bought silver or regretting yourself or kicking yourself in the butt saying, "Man, I wish I just would have done it." You're supposed to be preparing. If you're not preparing, then you're literally setting yourself up for failure. There is no idle ground. It's either one or the other. You're either preparing or you're slacking. And if you already are not preserving your wealth, especially with silver's undervalued price, then you're just a sitting duck, just waiting for the inevitable to happen. And that's just a very unwise decision, especially in times like this with logarithmic decay, where things are happening quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. And things that would happen once a month or once every couple months are now happening once every couple of days. And it's only getting worse and more severe, especially since it's an election year. Look what just happened from Putin's rigged election a couple days later. Imagine what's going to happen in November as well, one of the most controversial, important elections in U.S. history. So just remember to protect yourself. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Let me know what you think about this. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys later today. Peace.